Yeah, school was, I think my parents helped me pay for a lot of things. So there was like that pressure of, okay, I want to get something out of this. So I got my bachelor's and master's, and esports I discovered early in my bachelor's, but that wasn't something that I was like, oh, I gotta jump, head over heels for. A lot of people are like, they discover esports and they're like, I need a job in esports, and they just like drop everything. Yeah. Like even till now, science is always my fallback. Well, now it's more of a fallback. Before it was kind of my main thing. But education kind of drives a lot of your success when in most fields, including science. So I always wanted to get degrees out of the way, where I still am involved in science. Like I teach biology just to kind of keep my feet wet. But esports, there's not a lot of 45-year-old casters, right? Or 45-year-old, a lot of things. So I always thought, well, maybe if I make money here and there, okay, but it's not going to be my retirement plan. Like I said, I have like 5-10-year plans. So esports is not an end plan. At least it's very hard for a lot of people to make that an end plan. So I always have science as my end plan.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Deep Dives into the Minds of Esports. My name is Blake Penishevitz, and it gives me great pleasure to bring my next guest on this week. She is one of the most educated guests that has probably ever been on my show, holding a master's degree in cellular and molecular biology. She co-created the Female Pro League, previously casted Call of Duty, then gratefully to us all moved over to Overwatch. She has done commentary for Overwatch contenders China, South America, and Korea, and is also the broadcast director of Untitled Esports. Please let me introduce Jennifer Pichette, maybe better known as LemonKiwi. And I think I butchered your last name, didn't I?
No, that was perfect.
Oh, was it? Oh my God.
Yeah, that was great. I was going to say, I was going to butcher your last name way more than mine. But wow, what an introduction. Thank you so much.
I try to do it. It's like the one point that I'm like, oh, these are all the important. I will say yours was one of the harder introductions I've ever had to kind of like write longer,
like the Daenerys Targaryen, the unburnt.
Like I started to like look into you, and I was like, holy shit, like this girl is way more amazing than I already thought she kind of was being on like the show. And I was like, wow, this is like, how do I cherry pick what I'm going to end up taking from this? Because I think it's all really good. So I like to start off the show pretty easy and an easy question. So one of the things I was looking into for you is you have a very interesting certification / license, and it is in animal anesthesia and organ collection. Do you know that is probably one of the most intimidating like certifications I've ever seen?
Yeah, so you must have seen my LinkedIn, which a lot of people try and esports consultants like to find people there, and I keep my LinkedIn all for my sciencey stuff, because that's where all my stuff is. So yeah, my whole master's degree involved playing with mice, studying their poop, to be even more. I like to tell the story, but I studied mouse poop, where I would put them through different diets, and I'm mainly trying to study the bacteria in their colon. And the best way to get kind of like the easiest sample from that is to get the poop, because that's where all the bacteria are, and you can kind of sample what's in there. But not only that, I would also, at the end of the mouse's life, the most ethical thing is you want to use as much of the animal as possible. So I'm able to put it down in the most ethical way, which at the time I think was CO2 or some other type of gas. So at least I'm able to know what concentration of gas to use, so they're not suffering for too long. Like they're kind of just out, kind of like pass out from lack of oxygen. So it's not too painful. And then after that, I kind of know when they're dead. So I'm able to verify that they are, in fact, dead. You do like a little toe pinch. I think maybe this works in humans. I don't know. I've never tested it, but a little toe pinch. And if they flinch, that means their nervous system is still alive. And then I have to keep waiting until they're dead. And if there's no toe pinch, then I'm able to go in there, cut them up, and correctly take out their organs, so I could do more testing. And if not testing for my project, then I can freeze them and have other people use it in the future. But what you want to do is use as many organs from the animal as possible, so you're giving them the most value from their life. So ethics, yay.
Yeah, ethics are kind of cool. So have you ever thought about like turning that into like, have you ever seen that meme where like, oh, you wouldn't say this to this person at LAN because they're like so jacked? I want to see one about like you. Like you wouldn't say this to LemonKiwi's face. She's a certified organ remover and she'll take you apart and check if you
remove organs. Only mouse's organs, but I could probably figure out my way around a human.
Yeah, it's not dark and divided at all. So one of the cool things... This is what we get into in my show. My show is fun. So one of the cool things about you is you're actually from Sudbury, Ontario, right? And what's kind of cool about that is I don't know if do you know Sault Ste. Marie, which is in like Michigan?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually live 4 hours. Yeah. So I live 4 hours north of that in Michigan, or I did. So I'm actually originally from. You're actually fairly close. I'm slightly more north, I think. But what's Sudbury, Ontario like?
So yeah, I kind of was born more south of that, but I spent like, my whole bachelor's and master's degree there. So like 6 years. So I kind of lived there for a long time, but I wouldn't say I liked it very much. Like I kind of was from the Barrie, Toronto area. So it's a lot more populated. The weather's a little bit more normalized. And then Sudbury, you come up there and it's, a 4-hour drive, like in the middle of nowhere. And then you arrive in the city and it's a coal or mining city. So there's a lot of worker or mine people there. And it's the north, so it's much colder. There's like northern people. I don't know. They're like their own different thing of their culture and the things they eat and stuff like that. So I already felt kind of, I don't know. It wasn't somewhere I would want to live because there wasn't as much to do because you're like Sudbury and then there's like nothing else around it for like several hours. So it's not like Barrie where you can go to Toronto or Barrie you can go to Niagara Falls. It's like when you're in Sudbury, you're just there and that's all you have. And I didn't really like it that much. I don't know. It was kind of winter like 9 months out of the year.
That's honestly, God, that's what life was like where I used to live in Michigan when I was living in the UP. Is it's quite literally it's winter like 9 months out of the year, and I'm just like I hate everything. And then you get like one really gross rainy month, and then you get like one really gross super humid hot month, and you're just like there's only one good month in the year. It's terrible. So you said you're from it's called Barrie?
Yeah.
What is Barrie like? How big is Barrie in comparison?
Oh god, at a population size, I don't like to assume 150,000, I guess.
It's pretty
so
big.
That is kind of close to Sudbury's population. I don't know, it felt more concentrated. I think Sudbury's a lot more like bigger land and more dispersed, and Barrie's a lot more concentrated, and I don't know, it's nice. It's got, I guess Sudbury has water too. I don't know. Barrie just had more to do, I felt like. And it was always easy access to Toronto where there was concerts and all those things, and Sudbury was pretty localized. But I mean, I really liked my school. I think that was the main thing. I spent 98% of my time at my university, so that was pretty. Had water, had lots of trees, lots of cool people. So,
do you have any brothers or sisters then?
No, I'm an only child.
Only child.
I know.
You were that like only child who got spoiled, or
yeah, like I don't know, people, all of my friends had siblings, so they're all like, oh, it must be nice to be the only child, but you get all the attention like financially, but then you get all the pressure from being the only child of like, you have to be you are only one, you have to be everything you can be. And then all the, frustrations and everything is all on one person. Instead of maybe, okay, you have to be, well, I guess you don't have the pressure of being better than another sibling. So I guess I'm very lucky, but there was also a lot of pressure, I guess.
I know a lot of only children always say that they wish they kind of had brothers and sisters. Do you ever wish that you kind of had brothers and sisters?
Maybe not. I don't like competition. I don't like having to be like, oh, I have to be better than my sibling. I watch a lot of shows where it's like, oh, your sibling is way richer and better at life than you are. And if I would have been in esports and my sibling would have been, I don't know, a chemical engineer, I would have been like, I don't know, way more weird about my decisions in life if I had someone to compare myself to. But having that friend that has like that unconditional love because you're blood related, maybe that would have been cool. But I don't know. I would say no. I think I'm fine without one.
I have a little brother, so we're 4 years apart. It's kind of
that's
it's
cute.
interesting. It's
maybe
right.
a littler one, so you can like teach them what to do and not to do.
Yeah,
that might be fun.
Maybe it's a thing. So, what did your parents do growing up?
When they grew up, oh god. I know my dad was in the military since he was like 18.
Really?
So he just did military his whole life. Yeah, kind of the reason why we were near Barrie was because there's a military base there. And that's where kind of we got moved to, or where we ended up moving to. And then my mom growing up, no idea. I actually never asked. Is that bad? I think that's bad. But at least when I was a teenager, or at least young teenager, yeah. No, I think when I was born, she started at a car factory and then kind of was at a car factory for 20, 30 years. So yeah, I think that's since I was born. Yeah.
Try and check how old you are.
I know. I'm like, oh God, what did they do? Yeah, I've only known that one job for them. So,
So you mentioned your dad was in the military. Was he stationed at Barrie the entire time then? Because I know a lot of military families end up moving like every 2 years is pretty common.
Well, at least when I was born in Montreal. So in Quebec, and I think we were stationed there. I don't know if there's a military base there, but I know I was born there. I'm not sure how long they were there for, but my parents met in Europe because my dad went to Europe for some military reason. And then they had me or conceived me and then came to Canada and was in Quebec. And then I know that we moved to Ontario or Borden, the military base near Barrie, a few years into my birth. And then I kind of lived there my whole life until I went to college in Sudbury. So yeah, I didn't have to move, thankfully, that much. But yeah.
So you're a very charismatic person, at least on camera. And I just in general, I think, okay, kind of, were you always like this? Was this the person who LemonKiwi was growing up, was just this always charismatic and going out and talking to people?
No, not really. I used to like cry at presentations and just like hate my life, having to public speak. And I think it eventually came down to wanting to present what I like talking about. Cause you know, when you're like presenting poems or you're presenting short stories in front of your class when you're younger, a lot of people are kind of bullyish about it. But when I got to college and I got to present like my research, or I got to present science stuff or things that I'm interested in, then I felt like, oh, I like talking to people in front of people when I know what I'm talking about. So I guess over the years I just kind of got over that. But no, I kind of stayed at home a lot. I wasn't that kid that kind of went out and had sports and had clubs and had friends and all these things. It was like, even in college, I wasn't that partier. I was like, oh, I got a test coming up in 2 weeks. I should start studying. So I studied a lot. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned that you didn't do a lot of like social activities like sports or anything like that growing up. Did you do anything else? Like, I don't know, like, what is it? Some kids do debate club, I guess, or like quiz bowl, or do you do anything like that?
Yeah. Yeah. There was in high school, there was an improv club. Improv is like a type of theater. I assume people know what that is. Whose line is it anyway? Type of stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Since I was like 4th grade till almost the end of high school, I was part of that. So I got to travel to a few other schools because at least in my my high school, we're like connected to other high schools. So all the high schools get together and they do like sports and activities. And one of the activities is you could do improv. So you'd compete in improv competitions, I guess, with other schools. So that was, I guess, a social activity. I know it wasn't like sports, so I never
that's
like
pretty cool.
brag about it.
I think that is one of the coolest things I've ever heard someone say on this show. Like related to like school. Like we didn't. We might have had my first school that I went to growing up didn't have improv at all, right? Or like really a theater department at all. And then by the time like I switched schools, I was too old and I didn't even think about it. But like that's a super cool idea, and it's hilarious that you mentioned doing like improv, and you have this like hate for like presenting, right? Like these are very much improv is I'm gonna be out there and do that. Did you explore anything else in like the theater arts that you really like besides improv?
I did like Shakespeare and those kind of theater things. I know there was like maybe a couple plays at my school that I enjoyed, but I wasn't really good at memorizing lines. So I ended up just kind of improving my way through a lot of things, which my teachers didn't like that I wasn't following the lines. There's actually a really funny Facebook video. Maybe I'll link it to you privately after, where I do a Shakespeare reenactment. But I'm Claudius when I have an eyeliner beard and I'm an evil guy, and it's really funny. No, yeah, I just kind of stuck to theater-ish, improv-ish. What else? I think that's about it. No, didn't do sports in college. Didn't do extracurriculars. Just really studied. I'm pretty boring that way.
Did you have? Where did you get this drive for school then? Because like that's another thing is like this idea that you're always studying and always having to. Did someone instill those values into you, or where did that come from?
Why I wanted to? I don't know. I guess there was like that pressure of, okay, when you're done high school, you go to college. I don't know. So, but I knew what I wanted to do since maybe 7th grade, 8th grade. I think that's how it is in the US, 7th, 8th grade, then college. Or no, there's 11th, 10th, and 12th. Yeah. So around, so till 12th. Yeah, I'm like remembering things a million years ago. Yeah, till 12th. But I think around maybe between 7th to 11th grade, there was this project in my bio class. It was kind of like a mini thesis, because we had this like hardcore science teacher in high school, and she wanted all of us little tiny kids to like, well, I won't say tiny, we're like in 7th grade or something, to come up with a thesis. So to propose something that you want to prove in a sciencey way, how you're going to prove it, and then you write a paper about it. So I wrote, I proposed, I was one of the like 3 people out of 40 that actually got my proposal approved on the first time. So I knew what I was doing. And it was like a fish bowl, and I would put fertilizer in it. And I was studying eutrophication. I think that's how you say it in English. I went to a French school, so I might butcher a few things. Eutrophication, which is just fertilizers increasing the growth of plants in water. Mm-hmm. So plants take oxygen, and then they take all the oxygen and all the goodies in the water, and they kill off all the fish. So I had 2 fish bowls, and I put fertilizer in one and not in the other, and then one turned green and yucky and my fish died, and then the other one my fish didn't die. And it sounds really simple, and it's already been proven. It's not like I was reinventing the wheel, but that was my science project, and I wrote a big ass paper about it, and I got like an A on it. So I was like, wow, I really like science. And as soon as high school was done, I went and did a bachelor's of science.
Okay, so killing fish for the sake of killing fish.
Oh god, now it's like I already killed animals like twice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you're a serial killer, but if there would happen to be like little animal bones, I wouldn't. I think it's really good that you like it's. Like, you're very passionate about science. Like, hearing you talk about it, like, you do have a deep love for science. It's, like, pretty amazing considering that, like, the job field you're in, a lot of people who get into this, they don't really have this, like, other love that is, like, out there and, like, so valuable to them, right? It's pretty special, I think. And you seem so dedicated so early on, like, especially, like, it seems like your trajectory was very straight and you knew what you were doing. And, like, there wasn't any, like, debate in your life about that.
Yeah, I definitely was one of those people who had 10-year plans. I don't like kind of just winging life. That stresses me out. I even like in esports or anything, I have like a 5-year plan of like, this is what I'm doing right now. This is my goal in that many times. So kind of going into college, my thing was like, oh, let's go to med school. And obviously you're kind of, everyone thinks science equals med school, you know, and your parents are like, ooh, doctor. So that was kind of like maybe the thought behind science. And then kind of discovering research at the end of my bachelor's. I did like this research project at the end of my bachelor's, which was like studying bacteria again, but this time not killing animals. This time just digging through dirt and or soil, as they like to say. And I figured that research was a lot more fun. It was about like problem solving, and you have like a purpose in the field. You're solving a problem that no one else knows about. And I ended up figuring out that, okay, med school, maybe physically, emotionally would not be for me for so many reasons. But research is something that I like a challenge, and I like having a purpose and a footprint in the world. So I figured that was really cool. And then a master's opportunity came up, and I kind of just followed that path.
So looking at like high school and going through elementary and high school, you seem like you were a straight A student. Is that a correct assessment?
It was actually funny because I'm like a pretty average, like B plus, more
Really?
in that area, A minus. Yeah, and maybe I know that's probably one of the bigger reasons why med school kind of drifted out of my mind was like, okay, you needed like A pluses, and all of my friends that were striving for A pluses were just like miserable and stressed out all the time. And I was that person that like, if I did my best and that's the grade I got, and I mean, I did my best. I don't mean like kind of study. I mean, like I studied my butt off and I care about the subject and that's the grade I get, then that's it. I'm kind of like I'm happy with what I get. And I don't want to put extra stress on myself because once I let go of med school and I knew that grades weren't like the biggest deal, it was all about learning and however much I can learn without being miserable, because worrying about grades took away from my learning experience. So then just getting B pluses and A minuses, I got my occasional A's, but I also, got C's in a few classes I really sucked at. I also failed calculus. I failed my first physics test. There was a few things that I didn't do well on, but not stressing about grades, I think really helped my experience overall.
I'm just kind of surprised with how dedicated you are. Like you sound so dedicated. And like I know school for me, the people who were dedicated always did better for like college, right? It was the people who I
always got
like
A's in labs.
Oh, okay.
Right. I was like the hands-on, like that's why like anything labs and research, like I always sound smarter in research and my labs because hands-on, whenever I can see why this is happening physically with my eyes and my hands and seeing what's happening in front of me, then I'm able to understand it better. But learning out of books was also a little bit more difficult. So when it comes to research, like I published in a journal that a lot of my co-peers didn't manage to get as high in, not like flexing or anything, but like
just a little
research,
flex.
but just a little flex. But like my research was okay. And I always did better in labs. I would carry all of my co-peers in labs. They'd be like, how do you do this? And I would be mounting this giant not beaker system, I forgot what it was called, this big glass system that was really hard to do. And yeah, I was always better at that. But then that balanced out also with my class grades. So I'd get like B-ish, B pluses in class, but then I'd get like A plus in labs. So it kind of balanced out a little bit.
Now you actually have two things published that I was able to find, right? You two that are pretty big. Like, I mean, it's a pretty big deal. I mean, just
no flex, but
no flex, but it's kind of a big deal. So it seems like school, like if you were to list out your priorities kind of growing up, school seems to be number one almost the entire time. Do you think this is probably true?
Yeah, school was, I think my parents helped me pay for a lot of things. So there was like that pressure of, okay, I want to get something out of this. So I got my bachelor's and master's and esports I discovered early in my bachelor's, but that wasn't something that I was like, oh, I gotta jump, head over heels for. A lot of people are like, they discover esports and they're like, I need a job in esports, and they just like drop everything. Yeah. Like even till now, science is always my fallback. Well, now it's more of a fallback. Before it was kind of my main thing. But education kind of drives a lot of your success when in most fields, including science. So I always wanted to get degrees out of the way, where I still am involved in science. Like I teach biology just to kind of keep my feet wet. But esports, there's not a lot of 45-year-old casters, right? Or 45-year-old, a lot of things. So I always thought, well, maybe if I make money here and there, okay, but it's not going to be my retirement plan. Like I said, I have like 5-10-year plans. So esports is not an end plan. At least it's very hard for a lot of people to make that an end plan. So I always have science as my end plan.
Okay, so you're always got that fallback plan to go on. Now, one of the things you mentioned is that you actually went to a French school. Now, you speak 3 languages, right? At least two fluently and a little bit of Spanish, right?
A little bit of Spanish, which I probably have lost since high school. I took a lot of Spanish in high school, so I felt comfortable reading it. Yeah, just French and English. Okay, so are you like first language French, second language English then? Yeah, that's kind of like weird because people don't think that. Because like when I grew up in Montreal, that's a pretty French province. And I grew around a lot of my French family from my dad's side. So that was really one of the first languages I learned properly. And then going back to Ontario, then I kind of mixed both because my mom was only English. So then I kind of had to obviously talk to her. So it was French and English. And then, but all of my elementary school, high school, and bachelor's degree were all in French.
Weird.
But because you're in such an English community, you're kind of talking both. So a lot of people don't hear an accent from me because I always spoke both. So
now you mentioned your mom was from Europe. Where in Europe?
Yeah. Austria.
Okay. Have you ever been back to visit family in Austria?
No, actually, I've never been to Europe at all. It's kind of been brought up, or at least like my mom has a weird, always had a weird relationship with her parents. Not like I don't think even she visited them since she had me until recently when she had her parents get sick. But yeah, and I've never seen them. I think I interacted in a Skype call with them like this year or like last year.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't really have that kind of grandparent connection because like my grandmother on my dad's side passed away when I was like really young, and his father or my grandfather was passed away since my dad was young. So I really didn't have grandparents to kind of cling to like most people, but I'm cool with that.
You're like, I'm just cool with it. So it actually doesn't sound like you had that much like outside family at all, other than like your immediate mom and dad. Like that seemed to be like the cornerstone of your like life growing up.
Yeah, like my mom has like a sister, but again, they're all in Austria, never visited, and they only know German, so can't really like send. And they don't do technology, so Facebook messages wouldn't be a thing either. My dad's side, which is funny, he has 11 brothers and sisters.
Oh wow.
So yeah, there's procreating a lot over there. So in Quebec, we would go for family meetings or family reunions. That's the one.
I like how you call them meetings.
Meetings. I know I'm in meeting mode right now. Family reunions till I was 12. I don't know what age, but pretty young. We stopped going as soon as my grandmother passed away. My dad's side, we kind of didn't have a reason to go over there because that was kind of usually for her I think it was for her birthday or something. But she, my dad's mother would go, and then we would all have this big party and stuff. But then when she passed away, my dad didn't want to, I don't know, keep going there anymore. Yeah. And it's probably hard to maintain a relationship with like 11 brothers and sisters. He has like one or two that he likes, and then the rest are like, nobody checks up on each other. So yeah, we never visited. But so I have some on Facebook, so.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope, like, Facebook's pretty easy to get in touch. Like, there's relatives that I have on Facebook who I don't talk to at all, and I'm like, I don't really know who you are, to be honest, but you're related, so it's okay, we're kosher. One of the things you had mentioned in a previous interview that, like, one of the things that would really help is, like, having friends and family to help support you, but one of the most important things is, like, believing in yourself, right, and having this, like, belief in yourself and always kind of relying on yourself. Do you think that comes partially from the fact that you just don't have a lot of outside resources like a lot of people do? Like a lot of people have like cousins and uncles and grandparents that they're always there. Do you think that part of that comes from that self-reliance?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, you always have friends and parents, and I think I've always been self-efficient that way I stayed home and studied. There wasn't going to be anyone who studied for me or with me or did my homework for me. So it always like, I don't know, I was always in this learning process where learning is always what you do for yourself. And I don't know, my parents always taught me it's like, you got to work hard and you got to do this. And I had friends here and there, but I was always focused on me. So maybe I was more introverted for a lot of my life than I seem socially outgoing. But yeah, I've just always been introverted that way.
Okay, so I think it's kind of cool because like esports, I think, at least the perspective I've got being involved in esports is a lot of times it does feel very individualized. It is on the individual and not so much on like other people. Like obviously knowing people is always very helpful, but a lot of it is on like how much work you do. And sometimes it feels, even though like there's so much social interaction, it feels very alone sometimes. Do you ever kind of get that feeling?
See, that's kind of... Maybe at the beginning it doesn't feel that way. Like I did the casting route, right? So maybe it's a lot different than a player because player, you get to play with other players and teams and you build that kind of family thing. But casters, you still have a co-caster. But until Heroics, I never really had a close co-caster. So in Call of Duty, when you start casting, even in both these sports that I did, actually, it felt like a lot of the smaller guys were always trying to help each other out. You know, we're always trying to encourage our each other to do better, and we're always kind of friends. But as soon as like you get just a little bit good, or, you know, opportunities start to come up that others have and others don't, you start to get that competitive nature. So because of that competitive nature, and probably many facets of esports, probably in hosts from players to everything, when you get that competition, it did feel a little bit lonely. Of kind of, it felt like everyone was against you, or everyone was just waiting for you to fail, I guess. A lot of people, even in, like back in Call of Duty, people were always just trying to like make like start drama and make people look bad. And thankfully Overwatch hasn't been as much about that. At least that's a positive thing I've had. But now that I've had like an actual friendship with my co-caster Heurix, it's definitely felt like more of a team thing towards an objective, rather than before it was, okay, I'm co-casting with somebody, but you know, if he ends up somewhere, then oh, like, okay. But now it feels more like I feel less alone, because I have a co-caster that I think has the same goals as me, and actually I don't feel like he's trying to compete with me. So it's been nicer than before.
Okay, so you kind of mentioned Call of Duty, but before we get into that, because you did that during your bachelor's degree, you're leaving high school and you're going out into the big wide world of colleges. Did you know exactly what school you wanted to go to and what degree you wanted to study?
I think for my bachelor's, I knew what school I wanted. Laurentian in Sudbury was really cool because it had a lot of nature around it. It was like legit surrounded by a forest, and you had everything from like a million lakes there to all kinds of animal life. So if I wanted to branch into, you know, studying fish or studying animals, you know, I liked human biology, but I felt like they maybe offered more options and more hands-on stuff. I thought there was a lot of field work that you could have done, and a lot of my summer jobs were field work, which I actually went outside for, so that was really fun. And I felt like I know, I went outside. So that there was a lot of cool, I don't know, the campus was just really pretty, and it wasn't too far away. It was like 4 hours away from where my parents were. And I never wanted to go anywhere that was too far, because I still wanted to kind of visit my parents at that point and have a fallback plan, you know, if things didn't work out. And, you know, then there was also, you know, U of T or Toronto and like those type of schools where I felt like that was maybe too concentrative population, because Barrie or around Barrie at the time wasn't super populated. So I didn't want to transition into going to Toronto or going to somewhere super crazy. I just wanted the same population, the same kind of smallish, medium-ish city. So Laurentian worked out. And then for my master's, master's is more complicated because bachelor's, they kind of take everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know if in the US you have to pass tests and stuff.
GRE, well, I guess it depends on which one you're going for. I know that when I started my master's, I specifically looked for a master's that I didn't need to take a test for, because I hate doing standardized tests.
Yeah, same.
But yeah, a lot of them you do.
Well, yeah, I know the US, they have all kinds of SATs and all these lettered tests that you have to take. But in Canada, it's like you done high school, you have a pretty decent average, even B's, you can get into college. It's not that big a deal at all. So it's kind of like pick wherever you want to go and you can pretty much end up there. And then it just depends on what scholarships you get. But for master's, a little bit more picky, because you have to email, you kind of have to apply for a job, because like master's is kind of like a job. You get paid to do it. And you have a small, you know, fee to do it as well. So I wanted to go to Guelph, which was nearish Toronto. I don't know. It was more south. I wanted to be closer. Guelph seemed nice. I didn't end up convincing the professor to take me on. And there was a new professor that came to Laurentian, so in Sudbury, like brand new professor. And he worked on diabetes, bacteria, you know, just really cool health stuff. And we just like connected right away. I think he was a teacher in one of my classes, and he said he was looking for people. And I definitely was like signed up for that. Although I wouldn't say I regretted it, but I probably should have thought about it a little bit harder, because he's never had any master's students before. So I was going to be his guinea pig round. But it's kind of like that only child thing where I was like I think I was his very first and only master's student. So again, all of that attention and all of that pressure was on like one person. So yeah. the long story, but yeah.
No, you're good. So your master's, what type of research were you looking at doing? Obviously, your master's in cellular and molecular biology. What is that like? What is the real world applications of what you actually did?
Right. So when it comes to masters, at least research based, your research has to be related to something you want to do in life. That sounds pretty forehead, but don't go studying like the metal and desks if you don't want to work with the desks, I guess. So this guy was working on obesity, diabetes, bacteria. These were all things I found super cool. So if I didn't want to go into research, because kind of when you're stuck with the research bug, you kind of only have research to do, which a lot of people just continue research for their whole lives. But there's also like real world stuff where if I worked with diabetes and obesity, I can easily go towards the Canadian diabetic, I forgot those associations. And if I'm a diabetes researcher, then I can easily work for the government. If I'm an obesity, I could say I'm an obesity researcher and then go towards that side. Anything with bacteria, I can, fall back to microbiology labs. So I felt like there was a lot of hands-on work that I was doing that could easily transfer me to a job if I wasn't interested in research anymore, or I could just continue research. So I had thought about it, and which probably ended up being a better research project to do, because the one in Guelph had to do with like studying resistant bacteria, which would have only got me into like maybe hospital/bacteria rather than maybe all these other facets of diabetes and obesity and stuff. So
that's really cool. So how does I've read some like really, really old interviews with you, like back in 2015 when you were involved with like CWL. If you're not going to write questions, you need to know your guests very, very well. So
I don't even remember those.
That's okay. You're a very different person in those. It's hilarious and it's amazing. You should go back and read them sometime. That's good. You are very innocent. Like that was the best way to put it. Like innocent, like a young child who's like first opening the doors into esports, and it was very wholesome. That is the best way to put it.
Oh, okay, that sounds good.
Not like in a childish you were a baby, but in a very wholesome young. It was good. I enjoyed them. So kind of looking at that, obviously Call of Duty was your game that kind of got you into esports. Okay, Call of Duty is a very, I would say, interesting game, because I always remember Call of Duty being toxic as fuck, like always, like playing it. And you picked probably one of the most toxic games you could have. So what was it like getting into Call of Duty?
I mean, you kind of nailed it there. Toxic. I mean, all those like memes about Xbox Live parties, I think all come from Call of Duty. So that game, I mean, just like everyone thinks their own esport is toxic. Like you talk from people from Overwatch, they think Overwatch is toxic, League is toxic, CSGO is toxic. So to put it into context, like Call of Duty is like a war game, so all the little boys are going to play it. It was a lot of a younger audience too, because it's a very easy game to pick up just for anyone to play, and it's been around for ages, like very, very long time. New game every year, so you're getting a ton more casual players because there's a new game every year. And there's Christmas noobs everywhere. And what was that like? I actually liked playing a lot of it at the start. I definitely like when I was done studying, it was easier for me to just pick up a controller and make friends on Xbox Live parties or whatever it was, rather than make plans on going out. Then you have to spend all kinds of money on drinks and activities. I was just like, okay, I'm done studying. I'm going to play games and go to bed. So yeah, a lot of my hours were spent just chilling with friends on there until the female pro league, or well, not the female pro league, but female groups, I guess before that got invented, female groups kind of got together. And that was kind of, I wouldn't say like a safe place, but it was just more of a nicer environment to just chill and just have the girls come and play. And I definitely wasn't like maybe as good as the other chicks, because they were definitely super hardcore. And then I kind of started casting just because we had all these female tournaments and we wanted to have female casters. So that's where I kind of hopped in there. But besides the Call of Duty community, it was very tame. I remember like just fangirling over all the pros, and not like in that kind of weird way, but just like, oh my God, Clayster liked my tweet. Like, you know, how silly that was at the time. Like if, oh my God, Mickey liked my tweet, and then like years down the road, I was like hanging out with them. So it was kind of like this weird thing that at the start, it was very like, you're very innocent and like, oh my God, these are celebrities. Yeah. And then as years went by, you're like, okay, they're real people. And then maybe it was a little bit more dramatic of a community than most, because I felt like the pros were often feeding into the drama. And that's when kind of Keemstar and like those kind of those drama channels kind of started to come out of nowhere. And there's a lot of drama between pros and pros' girlfriends and people hating on each other. So it was definitely more of a high school environment because a lot of the pros were younger, because the audience were younger and loved that stuff. So it was really not that fun as I got more involved in the community.
So one of the people that you said that you looked up to as a caster was Pansy, or I have her name written down just because I can never remember it. I only know it. Lauren Scott. There we go. So Lauren Scott, did you start following her after you got into Call of Duty or before you got into Call of Duty?
I think like more when I was into casting. So maybe a little bit more as I was developing into a caster, because obviously in Call of Duty, there wasn't really any female casters, like at all. Even still now, I don't think there's one designated female caster. A lot, maybe some hosts here and there, but even then, that was like Puckett and Golden Boy, like 90% of the time. So I started to worry about, is there even a place in Call of Duty for female casters, let alone female personalities or anything? Because there was one girl, Wisdom, which I'm still friends with now, who was casting a little bit of Call of Duty at the time. But I meant like a serious, full-time, like branded person. And I think I reached out to Pansy like super early on in my career to just be like, hey, like, can I just talk to you about what it would be like to cast and how it was to be like a female in that industry? And I think she ended up ghosting me. So that was like a weird experience, although totally respect, because I ignore a lot of emails all the time too now. But Frostgrin was definitely another girl that I looked up to, and she was actually cool. She ended up like, well, more recently rather than in my Call of Duty days, but Frostgrin ended up helping me out. So I got a lot of support from like female branded personalities later on in my career. But it was really just about maybe sticking through it. But I didn't feel like Call of Duty was ever really receiving of a female caster. Even when I was like half decent, like it was just, nope, we don't want to hear this female voice. So Call of Duty definitely like beat the hell out of me when it came to that, but way happier in Overwatch.
That's what I was going to say, is I remember seeing some of your interviews, and that was one of the things you talked to. I was like, it feels like the couple of interviews I kind of ran across, it felt like you were just constantly getting beaten down by Call of Duty. Like, I swear to God, like every interview, I was going to ask you, do you think that this was esports as a whole? Because, I mean, this was also pretty, like, 2015 is 4 years ago, and I think like we've come a long way in 4 years personally, but still much more work to do. But do you think that it was the entire esports space, or do you think that it was just Call of Duty that was like this?
Yeah, I guess I was stuck in the bubble of Call of Duty. And at the time, I can't really say that there was that many other female esports casters. I don't even know if I heard of Frostgrin at the time, because I was only introduced to League because of my partner. So maybe Pansy was like the only, I think that's maybe why I reached out, because she was the only one I knew of at the time. But there wasn't really any female casters that existed. So maybe it was the esports sphere in general. But now that I kind of look upon it, I think it was mostly Call of Duty, because nobody, MLG, CWL, whatever there was never anybody female on the desk, including hosts or interviewers. So I think the community as in general just had a bad, they just didn't like chicks, or I don't know. It was, then you had the drama of kind of pros like making fun of their girlfriends and ex-girlfriends. And then you had like all that kind of drama. So the community always thought that girls were always pros' girlfriends. That's the only time you ever like cared about a girl in Call of Duty, was because they were someone's girlfriend. And that always just had like a bad taste in everyone's mouth, because usually those ex-girlfriends were kind of shitty and were just starting drama. So there wasn't a lot of professional females in the community that were well branded.
Yeah.
Even streamer wise, really, there wasn't any Call of Duty streamers that were female. There was and then that's why kind of Female Pro League came around too, was to kind of help people start branding stuff. So eventually more branded females came around, but there was never a pro female player either. There was like one girl, Dream Crazy, who was kind of well respected, but never put herself out there to be a brand. It was kind of like she played with pros and that was it. So I was kind of one of the first. I wouldn't even say I was respected because I don't think anyone respected chicks at the time, but I was trying to be that first well-branded female, and that was just like a super hard time. And eventually I gave up on that. So
yeah, I have a quote from you that said, "Males want to work with males. Females are used more for their appearance." Something you said around the time. Do you still think that is true? Because obviously people bring up a lot like, oh, look there's not female pro players. There's not as many female casters. Like people do bring that up all the time. Do you think that that's still a true statement, or do you think it's gotten better? Or do you still think it needs to improve more?
It's definitely weirder now. Like I've kind of always went with that thought for a long time, because from a business standpoint, you go for the person who's obviously most skilled at the job, but then you also want to have some diversity so you don't get hit with it's all the white male desk kind of thing. Because Overwatch got blamed for that like a while ago, even though that was not true. But, people do bring the diversity thing up. So I do think like companies will do the diversity thing more for PR reasons than maybe what they actually believe in. And they obviously always stick the females as hosts, and that's a big reason why you don't see female casters, is because that quota is kind of filled by the female host. So if the male caster is, way a million times better, then it's kind of harder to squeeze into that role. But female hosts, I always found, as amazing and talented as they are, you don't really see that many ugly female hosts. So I've always believed that female hosts, it's a big part of your hireability or kind of the quality is what you look at. But of course, again, no disrespect, because I know there's a ton of work involved in being a host. And there are a lot of companies that focus more on your skill. But kind of the impression I got in Call of Duty was, hiring the pretty host that would bring in the viewers, and and I saw a lot of the people that didn't know a lot about the scene get hired over people that did. Yeah. And so I just kind of got bitter over that a little bit, because like when they hire female hosts, then there's no room for female commentators most of the time, because if there was a chance for me, that might have been there. But yeah, so I always focused on casting, not only because casting is way more fun and it uses a lot more of your game knowledge and player knowledge and etc. I didn't like being on camera as much as a host was, because the host is like the face of the stream. But casters, you can kind of like, be behind the camera a little bit more. At least in Call of Duty, you weren't like put on camera as much. You're kind of like the voice behind the game. So yeah, I always thought kind of females were used in that type of way. And obviously my perspective of that has changed a little bit more as I've seen more female personalities come out that aren't supermodels. Of course, very pretty, but they don't hire instantly supermodels all the time. So yeah, I've definitely had my perspective changed about that.
Is that one of the reasons why because you've said that you like commentary, is that one of the reasons why you like commentary more? Is it because if you get a job in commentary, it's about your skills, right? There is no other reason, like, at least like I could see like a thought process being that way. Like, they hired me because my skills are good enough, not because of the way that I look.
Right. And that's definitely like I said, a lot more of hosts. I think a host can host any game they really want. I don't think there's too much game knowledge that you need. And they say that because I've worked as a host, I've worked with hosts. It's not something I'm trying to flame anyone for. It's a common knowledge that you don't need much game knowledge and you don't need much player knowledge to go and host. Of course, you get a little bit of a foundation before you go, but caster is like is very specialized. You have to know a player's history, game, statistics, you name it. And I felt like those were more the things I wanted to focus on rather than have any sort of pressure on appearance. And I don't know, I've always been more someone that enjoys sharing my intelligence rather than sharing the way I look or trying to, I don't know, because you have to put on a show in that type of way too. So I'm just, whatever about that.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. So kind of looking at Call of Duty, one of the issues with Call of Duty is they put out a game every single year. Did this make it hard to be a commentator for something like Call of Duty? Because I imagine you have to, and there's similarities, but the game does change, and so that means the way that the game is played changes, right? It's kind of like like a very big patch change every freaking year. Is that something, one of the reasons why you were like, I'm tired of Call of Duty, this plus like all of the negative toxic behavior, was that one of the like big deciding factors, is like the stability of the game, why you wanted to leave?
Yeah, there was like several games. I don't even know which game I even started casting in. I want to say Black Ops 2 maybe, or something around there. And there were some serious patch changes, because you say like, yeah, it kind of transitions. Yeah, it's a lot about pew pew pew, some guns and people dying. The same game modes around there ish. Some new game modes actually. But then there was like some brand new stuff being introduced, like jetpacks, where Call of Duty was always kind of like, you know, you're very linear, you're not jumping, there's not a lot of dichotomy of getting up and down and all kinds of stuff. And now all of a sudden you're flying into the air. So that changed the whole pace of the game from a lot being about positioning and controlling areas, controlling sightlines, to now you have jetpacks where even if you don't have the advantage in a sightline, or if you're pre-aiming, you're not getting kind of rewarded for being in the right position because someone can just fly around the corner and kill you. So that took a lot of these, in my opinion, took a lot of the strategy out of the game. And I was always someone who liked the strategy of Call of Duty. I know people might lull at that, but there was strategy at the time of controlling maps and stuff. And then you had people who were just flying around. So it became more about who had the better shot and who was the better aimer. And there really wasn't much strategy, because in a 4v3, then you're like, okay, well, most likely they're going to win. And there was, of course, some hype moments. You could still make it hype, but at the time I was more colorish. So it really sucked for colorish casters to sit there and try and say really what they did wrong or did right. Like the guy lost a gunfight, and then, you say, okay, he jumped around the corner. And then the perspective of the game went downhill. Like all the pros, all the players really hated that change. And the new game every year, that was super hard, because Call of Duty is a lot, like the casting of it came down to a lot more of the callouts. Yeah. So different buildings had specific names. So you had white, you had red, you had yellow, you had bomb A, bomb B, spawn here. And then you had to memorize the anchor spot. So if you died at this location with this many players, you would spawn in this location. And there's a lot of memorization, and then also the hard points. So hard point is when there's like a king of the hill, but then it rotates to different parts of the map. So I had to remember the rotations of, okay, well, king of the hill starts at screwdriver, then it goes into cave, and then it goes into this, and then it restarts at that. Because as a caster, you obviously want to, as a caller, you'd be like, okay, well, this is the king of the hill, and now they have to start anchoring for this. So there was so much memorization involved in color casting, or at least in casting that game in general, that when they changed it every year, it's like took you almost like half the year to learn the game and to be great at it. And then you already have to start letting that go and preparing for the next game. And of course, no maps were recycled, no guns were really recycled. At least there was some similar game types. There was like always hardpoint, search and destroy, but then they put in stuff like the capture the flag. That's really simple. Sometimes, again, you have to memorize spawn locations, and then they put this like ball one. I think it's called Uplink, where it's basically basketball ish, where you had a ball and you had to run and shoot it into the dome thing. So yeah, it really hurt casters a lot. Because you had to learn a new game. But MLG, CWL, they always stuck with the same casters. So you would think there'd be some kind of talent rotation, but there never was. So it was tough to just learn a new game every year. More because, like, you started to like the game and you started to get comfortable casting one, and then you walk into a game that you potentially might not like anymore, and your whole career changes because you might not like the next game that comes out. And then what? So at least with Overwatch and League, like the game you get is the game you get. There might be a patch here and a patch there, but it's not a completely different game. So eventually I just hated the game. I went from Black Ops 2 to Ghosts, where it was like very linear. Again, you don't have that jumpiness, to like Advanced Warfare. And then you had World War II that had some jumpiness. And I just like wasn't the game that I started liking. And I kept pushing myself to continue because, you know, the core game was still there. You had your game modes, you had the player base was exactly the same. You had one new player every year. So super unexciting in terms of any developments in the esport. And I just started hating the game. And you could tell in my casting that, and especially when I was doing Female Pro League, where I had to cast like 8 hours a week or 10 hours a week or just several, even more hours a week, I was doing it for the money and for the work. And I wasn't doing it because I liked the game. And a lot of people started complaining that I wasn't hype. I didn't sound interested anymore. And then I listened back to it and I was like, yeah, I really didn't like the game. And then I got introduced to other games and I just let go of Call of Duty.
Makes sense. I like how you said, like, growing up, you didn't like memorizing lines for theater. And you're literally going through like memorizing. You're like, and it's dynamic memorizing too, because the way that like it changes and stuff, it's hilarious to me.
At least I had notes, so I could memorize hard points, but then write it down. While I was in theater, I couldn't sit with my script in front of everyone.
But I'm willing to bet you probably memorized more things for Call of Duty, maybe.
Yeah, a lot of things.
I want to talk about Female Pro League, okay? Like, because I haven't seen anything out there about how this got started, like what was the reason for starting it, or how like you built out this thing that is actually. It seemed like it was pretty big, like at least I don't know if it's doing anything recently. The stuff that I found didn't seem like it was, but it was pretty big.
So, I definitely don't remember the year it started. A couple of years ago, at least. Me and a bunch of friends, you know, we had these tournaments. There was a guy that was running female tournaments, and he ended up like not paying people out, and that just kind of like frustrated everyone. Yeah. So we decided that we just wanted to have a properly run like female tournament system. And what our goal was to help the whole female community. Like there was like zero female ecosystem. There was like a handful of, I won't say a handful, that sounds really small, maybe a couple handfuls of players that were female. And there was, every time they wanted to go to a tournament or like a major tournament, like an MLG and stuff, they were always like laughed at. They would never get tryouts. Like a girl would want to try out for a team, but that was automatically a no because you're a girl. And there was just no proper brands. So me and two other girls, we wanted to make this system. And again, it wasn't called Female Pro League at the time. And then we had a buddy whose name was, his gamer name was Happy, funny name. And he ran kind of an org within the community. We wanted to put this together. One girl left, so then it was three, and then the other girl left, and then it was me and this other guy. So we kind of held the fort together. And then we called it the Female Pro League. And again, we didn't really have any sort of MLG approval to call it a pro league. But hey, we were like, hey, we want this to be as legit as possible, that this is the only female league that exists, and we're going to have the best players, so we're going to call it the Female Pro League. So I was definitely skeptical with the name at the time, because I'm like, we could just call it something a little bit more easy on the eyes. But I think it ended up being a good idea, because how much hate it got at the beginning was like a whole big reason why we got so much attention. Because like, oh, females can't be pros, and why would you call yourselves a pro league, and why do you need your own league? And oh my god, the amount of arguments we got over that just like attracted so many viewers and so many people talking about us, that we were like a known entity now in the community without doing much. And then we started running tournaments. Oh god, again, I can't even remember what game it started in years ago. And we had like thousands of dollars of worth of tournaments. And then girls who were forming teams started getting sponsors, which was like the whole point. Those girls started getting like proper orgs, like TK at the time, and Isolation Empire, and all kinds of different decent orgs were sponsoring the girls to be in our league. And the whole point was just to give them kind of a platform to show that they are in fact good players, and that here's how good this player is, so you should try them out for your team. We didn't want to be our separate pro entity. We were more of a stepping stone for them to not only feel comfortable as a player, but for them to like try out for other teams, to get sponsorship money so they can go to doing other things. And yeah, I really enjoyed my time doing that.
Did Female Pro League end up getting to a point where it was functionally like a business, to where you were like bringing in sponsorships in order to pay people? What was that getting it to that step like? Because obviously you start with, hey, we have an idea. And I don't think a lot of people get to see this about like different entities in general. And I feel like this one's probably old enough that you're okay with maybe talking about it. Mm-hmm. Like, how do you go from being an idea to being an actually functioning business?
Yeah, so we've never done buy-in tournaments. So a lot of our finances came from what, like, the other owner or the other co-founder, which was Happy. So he had a lot of leftover finances that he kind of threw in there. And then we eventually got sponsors down the line, Caliphone and some other little tech companies that Happy had connections with, gave money in. But we were eventually doing... I think maybe they do buy-ins now. I'm not too sure. But then we were like developing a website. So the whole part of the idea was starting with getting interest from the community. Because if you're doing a community project, you have to kind of see if the community wants to accept this idea. And then even within the female community, there was a lot of back and forth on. There was still girls that felt like, oh, well, we shouldn't have our own league. We should just play with the boys. And we should just, do that, or we should have a co-ed league or something. But then that's not the point, because then if you play with guys, and a lot of people who have 3 guys and 1 girl, they say the guys carried the girls. So we wanted just the girls to have their platform. Mm-hmm. So there was even back and forth between there. And eventually we had enough interest, and we actually ended up like almost doubling the community, the female community player size, by just existing. Eventually, like, these tournaments invited more and more players out, and more teams were formed. And I don't even remember how many teams we had at one point, 10 to 30, something like that. But then there was like 4 players per team, so it's not like Overwatch size. But idea just started with getting interest from the community, getting what the community wants. So sometimes they wanted S&D or search and destroy only tournaments. Sometimes they wanted this. What was the length of the tournament? So I, at the time, had to adjust between, okay, we have EU players, we have NA players, we have players from all over the world. So I had to separate it into NA and EU tournaments. I had to get the right times right. Are we doing a double elimination tournament? Are we doing a 2-day tournament, a 1-day tournament? Best of 3, best of 5, best of 1. So it was a lot of dancing between what people wanted. And there was a lot of stress too, because there wasn't, just like people in Overwatch are just never happy about anything. A lot of people, a lot of gamers are just never happy with anything. So there's a lot of pressure on my team to make people happy. And we got a lot of hate at the beginning for not doing things right. Because we'd have like 12, 18-hour tournament days, and people weren't happy about that. Or the tournaments ended too late and people didn't show up because they went to bed. So there's a lot of trial and error at the beginning of figuring out what was the best way to do tournaments, and how long and when and why and how. And eventually we got it right. And then it was just up to being consistent and getting the prize pool up and doing different things. And then also working on the production value. So having a stream and having the casters and what casters were coming on. And it was a lot of work to get it right.
I imagine it was. And then like paying people, because you actually paid people too, right?
At least at the beginning, I worked on FPL for free for like the first year or two. And that was kind of fine, because that was like my passion project. Yeah. Like, it wasn't something like, if, all the money I was getting, I wanted it to go to the league. Like, I always never really pushed for a salary, because I never felt like working on this was something no one else could do. Like, it felt like more of this was a volunteer job. This was a passion project. So 1 or 2 years I did for free. And then eventually we started getting money. I don't know, somehow we were profitable in some capacity. I don't remember, but I started getting paid, not really that much. It was maybe like, I don't know, 1,000 for like the entire season, which was like half the year. So it wasn't like, again, it was like nothing, but it was enough to say, hey, thank you for your work. It was also like the more volunteer people you have, not everyone works really hard on volunteer budget. Yeah. So I'm one of the few people that won't be an ass and still, work despite that. But yeah, thankfully being able to pay people got better people to work for us. So that helped.
So in a lot of your, like your CWL interview that you did, like esports being a career, especially for you at the time, was something that was almost like baffling and like it's never going to happen. Like the priority was always science, and then esports probably never going to happen. Even thinking about it happening seems like such a long shot. It seemed like more of a hobby or something that was just, this is not something that's actually profitable. When did that change? What was that moment where you were like, fuck, I can do this all the time?
I mean, even now, I'm still not 100% sure, right? Because I'm one of those people that believe it when they see it. I've been kind of duped by, not signing contracts and believing people's words, or believing in the smoke and the mirrors of people say, oh, well, you can be full time with us and never work a day in your life again or something, But
I don't believe that, but yeah.
Like I've been duped a lot of the times about smoke and mirrors and things that sound great. But esports is like, especially for a caster, is just very, unless you're in the tier 1, so unless you're in OWL or unless you're in the CWL Pro League, it's just not livable. And I've never been to that point. I've been more successful in Overwatch than I was in Call of Duty, so I really didn't believe it in Call of Duty that was ever sustainable. I liked it for the travel. I really just wanted to travel. I didn't want a salary. I didn't want to be living off of esports. I just liked that when I was doing research and going to school Monday to Friday, that I could leave school early on Friday and go to Daytona Beach and do esports. That's all I really wanted, was I liked traveling, and I liked kind of having a taste of it without dealing with the risks of esports. And yeah, I did make my master's professor pretty angry because he wanted me to be around more, and I was traveling a little bit more as time went on. But yeah, it wasn't really a fallback plan like that.
So even still today, you don't believe that like esports is like the career that you're going to make forever?
I would just have to see a lot of success. I mean, like livable success, right? Okay. Like consistent, like, because even contenders casters, although like, I've definitely made more money in Overwatch than Call of Duty, sure, but the consistency isn't there. And obviously I love contenders, but it's definitely not pay rent money.
Yeah.
But that's fine, because I'm realistic and I have that 5-year plan, and if the consistency isn't there, why would I kind of throw my life into it? But thankfully, I live with a partner who's definitely helped me give me some financial flexibility of like, hey, if I wouldn't have a job tomorrow, I'm not going to be homeless. Like I live, in the house and everything is fine if I were to not be having a job, but I still teach while doing esports. Yeah. And teaching is kind of that nice flexible job where like, I can cancel classes here and there. Obviously, don't tell anyone, but like there's that flexibility there, and it's part-time. I only teach 1 class, so I can definitely take on as much work as I want and also let go of as much work as I want rather than a full 9 to 5. And just kind of waiting for that opportunity for things to go full-time, because contenders isn't full-time. There's off seasons, there's on seasons, and Overwatch is still structuring how they want things. So it's, again, not livable at the moment. Okay. So looking at leaving Call of Duty and getting it, what drew you to Overwatch and not something like League of Legends? It's funny because it was actually the way I kind of started hanging out with my partner was that, hey, you like Call of Duty, and I was like, I need a new game, and there's just no games out there that I like, because I wasn't into BRs, I wasn't into MOBAs. I was always that, Call of Duty is so in the action. It's first person shooter. You're running around killing people. I didn't want to play League where you kind of farm around for 10 minutes. you wait for a dragon and you're just clicking around and it's not super interactive. Again, no offense to League, but it just wasn't. It's a great strategy game. I bet if I actually understood how the game worked, I would maybe be really into it. But it's too slow for me. So I needed something like in the action, a shooter of some sort. And then Overwatch, I think, was out for less than a year at that time. And my partner was like, hey, why don't you play this game? They have Soldier 76. It's basically Call of Duty. Yeah. And I was like, hey, okay. But I was someone who didn't like goofy. I wouldn't say goofy, but I just, Call of Duty was so realistic in terms of realistic.
Overwatch looks cartoony. Like I'll say it. Like it looks cartoony. That's why I didn't play Overwatch. Like honestly, I was into League of Legends until someone offered me a job at Overwatch, and I was like, yeah, I'll do the same job at Overwatch. I've worked with Heroes of the Storm. Why not?
Yeah.
Like no, I'm sorry, anyone out there who loves Overwatch, it is cartoony. Like it's a little bit cartoony.
Yeah, it's never liked cartoony games. I'm like, I don't want to play some Splatoon shooter. It was very, very colorful. Yeah. And I just like, hey, I come from humans shooting other humans with real guns, and I don't think there was blood at the time, but I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna replace that, because like League I thought was also pretty flamboyant in ways. Yeah. And he was like, just try it. And I don't even know what other games existed at the time. There really wasn't anything that I remember, like esports wise. I think there was like maybe
CS.
Heroes and CS. Yeah, I think I tried CS. And I didn't like the spray patterns, because then I went from Call of Duty where all you had to do was aim and shoot to now you go to CSGO where you aim and the bullets go like all over the screen. And I'm like, I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't like it. And it was too hard of a game for me to grasp. And I'm not someone who likes to play a game and be bad at it. I did try to learn spray patterns for a long time for CS. And that probably would have been the game that I should have went, I wouldn't say should have went to, but could have went to, because it was as close to Call of Duty as you can get. But because the spray patterns bothered me so much, I just didn't. I just didn't. And I played Overwatch and liked it a lot more. And I actually ended up playing it way more than my partner did, and still do, like, a lot more. And yeah, that's kind of where I went with it.
So when you got into Overwatch, was the thought, okay, I'm going to start casting Overwatch right away?
I don't even know how that all started. I think I just played a lot, and I don't even know how I met all these people. Like, I'm trying to think back. I must have like the memory of a chimp or something, because like
it's all those fish you killed. Like their karma is coming back on you, and they're like, you have the memory of a goldfish now.
I can memorize like hard points and all these damage numbers, but I can't remember how I met my friends. So unlucky, but love you guys.
We know where the priorities are.
I'm very bad. I don't even remember birthdays that well. Like I have to force myself to remember like my parents and my partner's birthday, and I'm just like kind of like not super crucial information. It's just like out my brain. But yeah, their birthdays matter. But yeah, I somehow met Mushu. I somehow met a bunch of people. Oh yeah, my Call of Duty connections actually sort of helped me in Overwatch as well. And this is going to be a cringe story, but I always I
like it.
You like cringe stories? Okay.
Yeah.
So I've told the story to like almost everyone. But Denial was an org in Call of Duty that was, fairly known, fairly successful, and had good players and never ever had an issue in Call of Duty. And then the guy Rob, I want to say his name was Rob, maybe something, Denial, whatever. That guy was like, I think he was trying to get into Overwatch, because at the time I remember there wasn't contenders, there wasn't open division, it was there was like not Curse, there was like Complexity, and then there was Cloud9, like those like super big orgs were like trying to get into Overwatch. And then Denial was trying to get in there, so I was like, hey, if you need, like, I'm trying to get into Overwatch, give me something. Or not give me something, but if you have something, let me know. Give me something. I know, trying to shorten a story, and I ended up managing the Denial Overwatch team, which at the time was like XQC, want to say like ZZA, there was Dahoon, somebody, maybe even Dante. Like there was just maybe some fairly decent people. At least now XQC is super famous, but managed that team. And that's kind of how I started making friends in the sphere, because I had to get scrims for them. And that was like a super toxic, horrible experience. So I didn't manage for very long. But I eventually met Mushu, and he was making Broadcast GG at the time. And he asked me if I wanted to kind of help him make it. And I really don't like startups. I haven't been seen or been part of a startup that's ever worked. Maybe I'm a factor, maybe I'm not, but startups are just... Yeah, oh yeah, that's true. That ended up working out, but that was kind of like my idea rather than
most to be fair, most startups do fail. So I don't know if that's you. Like, that's a pretty common thing that most startups that actually happen actually fail. So and
it's a lot of work at the beginning too. I was just like, meh, I don't know. Like, yeah, like I'll help, but I don't want to be like an integral part of it. So something along the lines of, yeah, I definitely want to help, but I'm not sure if I want to be like a leader in it at the beginning. I just want to see where it goes, like where's your foundation, and then we'll talk later on as to where it ends up. It ended up being kind of like, oh, we would help teams scrim, or not help them scrim, but they would scrim, and then we would cast over it and give them a VOD, because a lot of teams need VODs to review their stuff. So we would provide the VOD, and then they would give us something to cast over. So we would just do scrim nights, Broadcast GG scrim nights, where we would sometimes get permission to stream. And then a lot of the time it was like these plat teams and maybe diamond teams. So it was very awful gameplay to cast over, because scrims people don't try a lot of the time. Eventually we got into Grandmaster, like, 4 point something K scrims. So then that was a lot better. So then a lot of us just were practicing casting scrims, and like Ham Tornado, Leg Day, Mushu, Rapture, Kenobi, like all those kind of people started there. And then eventually we got permission to do Open Division somehow. And then it kind of incrementally we got more gigs out of that. So that was really cool.
Okay. So where does Jane come in the picture in Elo Hal?
Jane, well, I guess it's way farther down the line. I'm trying to remember how exactly we met. I definitely followed him for a long time because definitely his streams are amazing, and I like educational content, especially for Overwatch, learning about the game to cast it better. I looked up a lot of videos and his came up. Trying to remember is the exact thing. And then I started doing, I think maybe LA group stage was when I tried to wave hello, and he kind of passed me by, and that was like funny because me and Peggy or Morai, we're doing interviews, and we knew of Jane, and maybe he talked to us, but then we like said hi, and he didn't know it was us at the time. So there, and then BlizzCon maybe was like the first time I got to interact with him. And then it was like the worst opportunity ever too, because I was in cosplay and nobody knew who I was, because I was like in a blonde wig and all these like crazy things going on. So nobody recognized me. And then I think Jane assumed I was a cosplayer and like was talking to me, and then I was like, no, I'm LemonKiwi, I'm the caster. And then he thought I was super interesting because I was just like in this costume and running the Toronto Defiant, I think it was the Toronto Defiant after party. So he was like, oh, cool. And then we started talking from there. And he always, that's when he was doing TFC. And he was like co-casting it with people. So he did it with Ham Tornado and Labasco. And eventually I got on. And I think Jane and I grew closer that way because I have a really stupid sense of humor. And so does he. And a lot of people are intimidated by Jane. Like I know Ham and Labasco, when they were casting with him, they sounded nervous and stuff. And I just started cussing with him. Like Jane was really surprised because I was casting with him. And then I just started cussing with him. He would be like, holy shit, and fuck this. And I was like laughing and doing the same thing. So I was like one of the few that meshed better with his personality. And then that grew from, oh, well, I really like casting with you, to let's do content, to, okay, let's do Elo Hell, to, okay, let's do all these different things. So it definitely was a good personality match to work with him that way.
So kind of jumping on content, you obviously run the content for content director, I believe is your title for Elo Hell Esports, obviously. What do you classify yourself as? Do you look at yourself more as a commentator first? Do you look at yourself as a content? Because you did content with Kick Tripod too. You guys did Overwatch daily show, I think.
Yeah.
I think I was on it once when I was working with Gladiators. But what do you classify yourself as? Do you look at yourself more as like a caster? Do you look at yourself as a content producer? Where do you fall with yourself?
That's like
Manager?
hard. Yeah. Oh God, never again. I definitely think of myself as a community person, a community figure. And I'm almost too humble, where I don't like to say personality or influencer. That sounds so...
If you had to sell yourself, what would you sell yourself as? Because you have to put an official title if you're selling yourself, right? Like if you're going for jobs.
That's hard.
I know. I don't ask easy questions.
Depends
always.
what job am I applying for. But if I'm applying for caster, I'm a caster. If I'm applying for anything else, I'm anything else. But I definitely feel like I'm a community figure because I cast things sometimes for free or not. All things involved in community, whether it's open division, trials, contenders, for everything. I do content with the community to try and like help them brand themselves. So that's why I did Overwatch Contenders Daily, because I felt Contenders players deserve some experience in getting interviews and a chance to be well known if they don't have a stream and stuff. And I'm trying to run obviously kind of a secret right now, but I have other community projects coming up during the off season, and I'm just more focused on...
I can tell you the release date if you want to when this release date is, if you want to leak any of those.
What's the release date?
It's hang on. It is Yiska is on Wednesday, so you are 4 weeks out from next Wednesday.
4 weeks out. Then I don't maybe know.
Okay.
Actually, I don't even know when it comes out, but it's definitely involved. It's an off season, opportunity for people that want to play the game. Okay. And I mean, it's it's not like a super secret. I just want to keep the hype around the announcement. But I definitely just want to help the community, and that's why I've been transitioning my interviews to Twitter a little bit more to make them more accessible, because it's not about money for me when it comes to those things. Never really was. So as much as I can help the community, I will. So I guess I'm still a caster because that's what people know me as, but I definitely like community figure too, whatever that way. Community personality, I don't know. Something like that.
Yeah, because what does your work with Elo Hell Esports really kind of classify? Because it has a fancy title.
Yeah. What do I do? Okay.
Yeah. Are you like managing people? Because you sound like you don't like managing people. And I was going to kind of add on to that. Are you someone who is good at being a manager or likes managing people? Or is that something you prefer not to do?
I definitely like managing people, and I've gotten better at it but as time goes on. But yeah, for Elo Hell, I definitely direct a lot of don't want to use the title, but I help sort the tournaments and any Blizzard productions. So I kind of talk with Blizzard, see what they want, what are the requirements, what are their contract obligations. And then I talk with the production team. I'm like, okay, you have to hit this many ads. This is the type of setup we're going to do in terms of, okay, throw to break every map or only halftime. What time did we go live? What delay did we have? What casters do we bring on is mainly a Jane thing. Again, that would be a big conflict of interest if I was picking casters. A lot of people seem to think I pick casters, so a lot of people hit me up, but I don't do that. But I will throw the, names over to Jane, and Jane picks who he likes. And then once he tells me who he likes, then I'm like, okay, how much do you want them to cast? And then he's like, okay, I want these two to do this many matches, and then these two to do this many matches. And then I kind of put the pieces of the puzzle the way Jane wants it, in terms of, okay, Mondays are for ZP and Avast, Wednesdays are for leg day and Jaws, and blah, blah, blah. I kind of accommodate people's availabilities, and I do the grunt work for that. Just really organizing Blizzard productions is mostly what I do, because I think tournaments are, the other tournaments like Get Good and Peasant Cup and stuff are run by volunteer people from Jane's community. But I handle the kind of the big boy stuff of the Blizzard stuff, because that has to be done super by the book. Yeah. And I have experience doing that. So I just kind of like took it on myself. I didn't really like ask Jane. I just started like organizing all of it, and then he just like let me do it. So yeah.
Lots of business administration stuff. If you're looking for a cool title, you'd be like, I do a lot of business administration and contractual obligations work. If I can speak it. There you go. There you go.
Directing people. Director of things.
Directing people and things. Do you think that a lot of this stuff gets in the way of your, like, you do a lot of stuff. Do you think it gets in your way to working on casting? Do you think that some of this other stuff is taken up, like, time that you could be better utilized, like practicing casting or going out and casting different things?
Definitely not. I definitely feel like I don't have enough work. I like being busy all the time, and I like supplementing my skills. So I know that casting, I'm still like losing my mind. I'm trying to study like NA contenders, KR contenders, China contenders, and OWL, and just have like this knowledge base. So I guess like that, I could be spending more time getting to know more things to help my casting, but I want to be more useful than just a caster, because let's say I'll never be a caster in OWL or something, you know, like it's just not going to happen. I could say that I have all these years of experience, let's say doing content or doing managing productions or being a host or being an interviewer, like definitely trying to diversify as much as I can, because again, I'm someone who thinks of like the worst case scenario of not getting the plan A. So I have plan B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. So I don't, casting isn't full time yet. And until it becomes full time, I'm definitely going to use as much time as I can to do everything else too.
That makes a lot of sense. And so kind of like adding on to that, right? Like looking more forward, is casting the career that you want for your future? Like, is that the ideal, like, number one thing you want to do? Or is there other things that now you're kind of stepping back, having done different, like, managerial roles or stuff like that, that you're looking and being like, well, maybe this is something that I might enjoy more?
Definitely casting is something, the most challenging thing, and I think the most rewarding thing. Something that I don't really see, like, I could do casting, like, hours and hours and hours and never get sick of it. And it's definitely, I think, the most fun job to do and the most rewarding one. So definitely that's still my number one goal, is maybe casting OWL one day. Hopefully maybe I'll look back at this video and be like, haha, oh, how humble she was. But in terms of maybe something else other than casting, I definitely like productions. Not the observing fact, but maybe event production and stuff like that. But I know a lot of people that do like the project management and the event management side have degrees in like, event management and maybe production tech stuff. So I don't have the education to supplement that. So maybe down the road, maybe I would get into that. At the moment, I'm most qualified to be a cool caster. So being a cool caster is, I guess, the plan right now.
Okay. Do you ever undervalue yourself? Because just having talked with you for the while that we've been talking, I feel like I get that impression that you never think that you're worth as much as you do. Like it always feels like you would always go into something and almost like undervalue, because I think that you're extremely talented, extremely intelligent, and like I hear in that, and like I'm thinking as like someone who's doing like business, like if you came in, do you think that that's something that you correctly evaluate how much you're worth and ask for that, or do you think that sometimes you don't?
I think the whole confidence thing is something a lot of casters maybe struggle with, and I'm definitely one of those people, but I shape it more in a way of I have so much more to improve on, and I'd rather focus on how many things I should improve on so that I don't get complacent. Because I feel like if at a time I'm confident and I think I'm amazing, which I still think I'm a decent caster and all that, but as soon as I think I'm amazing, I feel like that's maybe when I start not putting as much work in and improving. And there's like so much to casting and Overwatch that you always have to be improving to keep up with the rest, or to just be above the rest. And I think if I start getting too confident, then I'll get complacent, and then I won't try as hard, and you'll definitely tell in my voice, or maybe even when I cast, that I just don't care or something. And I never want to not care. So always thinking I'm less than I am has kind of pushed me to improve, to think that I'm that way. So I don't know, as much as undervaluing probably sounds bad in the eyes of a lot of people, it's kind of helped me, I don't know, just work towards improvement. and always be humble, because I know like I know a lot of people that as they get famous, I've known a lot of people that they start out small and then they got famous and rich, and they just turn into really shitty people. Like people who like stop treating people well. They think they're like the greatest thing, and they stop working on themselves as a person, let alone their skills. Yeah. And I'm only 26, and I feel like as a person I have so much to work on, let alone all my skills. And I also want to treat people like as equals, if not like anyone who hits me up is someone I'll talk to, no matter how many followers I get or whatever. So always thinking I'm a normal person has kind of just helped me stay a normal person and not turn into an egghead or airhead or whatever. So I know that I wish I was more confident. So
I know when I went to California, that was one of the things I always tried to remember, because I had friends who made it to esports where I did, and I was always like, the Midwestern values that I have, like people in the Midwest are very odd. Like if you break down, like everyone will stop and ask if you're okay and if you need help. Like that's like fairly common where I grew up. I know it's like weird, and so it's like when I moved to California and I lived there for a year, I was like, this is so different than anything I've experienced, and I never want to lose that part of me that would stop on the road and ask if someone was okay. Like, I think it's super important for who I am as like a person. And I have noticed it with other people that they do tend to lose that, whether that's money or fame, or there's something in there that can change people if they let that like it happen.
Yeah. And I think confidence, like sounding confident, I definitely can sound confident. I think that's all an act. You can sound confident but not be. And so I've talked to some people who like have this mindset of, if you think you're the best, then you are the best, you know, then you can strive towards your goals a lot easier, not worrying about things as much. I think even Uber like had some interview where he was like, you know, just always think you're the best. And even if you're not, because that just helps so much more. And then that's just a mindset some people have. But I've always been, you know, focus on myself and how I can improve and just be normal, because sometimes I over-evaluate myself. Like, you know, when you start casting, you start doing anything and you kind of get the hang of something and you're like, wow, I'm really good at this. And then someone like bumps you right down. I've definitely had someone like bump me right down into like, you're just okay. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, I worked so much harder when I knew I was just okay than when I knew I was really good. So I don't know. Maybe it's just a mental thing. Yeah. It's just a mental thing.
Kind of looking at contenders in Overwatch League, and this is something I've asked other contenders casters, and you're going to be no exception. So it's like a repeat question, right? Which doesn't happen that often. Overwatch League seems very, like, I guess the correct word might be saturated with, as far as like casters. And it doesn't feel like there is a path to pro. Like, it doesn't feel like for casters, for players, there's definitely players who like the contender scene gets like gutted all the time and people go into out. Like, that makes sense. Like, people do that, but it doesn't seem to be that way really for casters. Granted, there was a couple of people who moved over and they got rid of some people. But do you feel like there is going to be upward mobility for you into Overwatch League, or are you going to look to transition your skills maybe to another game?
So yeah, the path to pro for casters, I think, has been a lot easier and maybe even has existed in this esport compared to others, because Call of Duty didn't have any sort of transition in that way. Kind of the talent that was at the top were always at the top, and you had like maybe one new caster in the whole scene, and that was it. I didn't feel like there was opportunities to move up. Or even platforms. I think it was more about having platforms to showcase yourself. There was never like a semi-pro scene that was well developed in Call of Duty. So you never had a semi-pro caster scene that was well developed. So a lot of casters in Call of Duty gave up. Like, I was one of the more stubborn casters that stuck around for many more years than I should have. And for Overwatch, now that they've let Open Division be broadcasted by BGG, there's a lot of casters whose first time casting was Open Division. Yeah. So you get to be on an official Blizzard broadcast. It's still a Blizzard project. So Open Division, it's like you don't get paid, but hey, you get experience. This is a real platform to get experience. And there's a ton of Overwatch or Open Division games, and then contenders. I think my first contenders region was South America, and that was super cool It was actually at a normal time zone, so that was somewhat manageable. So South America, I like, not only was that a casting opportunity, but that was an opportunity to like really get to know a community and hone in on your knowledge of that community. So knowing the whole player base, stats, and being able to do more than just cast, but to like have skills such as how to do statistics and how to create your player encyclopedia, or I don't know. But I definitely went all in to just, what would it be like to be a full-time caster? And then I kind of did that. In terms of like maybe the transition from Contenders to OWL, well, we just had Achilles and Wolf move from Contenders to OWL. So that's already an example of that happening, the path to pro. And there, I guess there's like rumors of more openings in OWL. I don't know, I've just heard. So we'll have to see if that's even true. But with expansions of regions, the localizations, I would imagine they need more casters. So I could see a lot more people going up. In terms of caster saturation, I wouldn't really agree with that, because there may be a saturation of casters, but not a saturation of good casters. And I mean, don't mean like people are good and bad. I mean like branded people that are duos that understand the fundamentals of casting, let alone have personality, have good delivery, have good game knowledge. Those are like the three facets that a caster needs to have. And there's a lot of people that maybe have one of those, maybe even two of those. And saturation of people who have the fundamentals of just knowing when to throw and what even color and play-by-play is kind of very small.
Yeah. I was referring more to OWL. Like, it doesn't seem like unless they expand OWL, like like below that, I don't think everyone's a good caster. I'm sorry, people, if you're watching this. There's a 90% chance I think you're not that good, but well, like if you're not, like, I'm just not gonna be any more toxic than that. But I mean, OWL, right? Like looking at OWL, unless they with expansion, that is like the one thing that I could see, like, okay, yeah, there's, if they do, when they do expansion or when they do more homesteads and they need more kits, that makes sense to me. But let's say that we don't do that, right? Like we delay it out a year because it sounds like whatever, like it's a good idea. I would say they should delay it another year, but that's just me. I'm slightly biased. But let's say we get the current casters that are now, right? Like I don't see any of those casters really leaving. I guess that's the thing, is like Monty and Doa don't see leaving anytime soon, really. And so that's what I mean, is like
phase some people out. Like they had Reinforced, like I don't know why
he was analyst dust.
Yeah, but they still faced
all the people they faced. They didn't get rid of any casters, did they? I don't think so. It was all analyst desk. All analyst desk.
But I also don't know what their contracts are. So maybe they signed like a 1, 2, 3 year contract. So, but I feel like it would take a lot to move those casters out of those positions, and it would really, like, obviously I'm biased and I'm like, hey, why don't you retire? Because I want that spot. But that wouldn't be very good if you could just phase casters in and out like that. Yeah, because then it wouldn't be a full-time sustainable job. Because then, like someone would be like, all right, screw this, I'm going back to CS, and then Monty Doa would go back to League. Like, obviously you need to let's not like, I don't know if you know the League backstory, but I don't think Monty will ever go back to League. Oh, maybe not. Maybe for the right money. I think anyone will move for the right money, but we'll see. Maybe. But I mean, I'm glad that they're secure. But
that's what I was asking. Is like a lot of casters, what they did is they started in one game and then they practiced and they practiced and they practiced and they didn't always make it to the pro league. But then they swapped games, right? And they brought all of those skills over. And that's what I see happening with, like, I could see happening with a lot of Overwatch casters that come in, right? Like, very realistically, it doesn't matter how good you get. There's only so many caster slots, right? And so, like, do you ever think about, like, maybe swapping games, or is it just because you love Overwatch so much that you're going to stay here?
Oh, I'm like the most stubborn person I know. Like, I've already
stay with Call of Duty, so
I stayed with Call of Duty for how many years when I never really got much opportunity, let alone love from the community. So I definitely I'm way more stubborn, and it takes so much more work to go into another game. Like, I know casters that like bounce from game to game to game, like kind of bandwagon the most popular game. And I'm like, how do you not like any stability in your life? Like, I just want to settle in a game and just work until the game dies or I die or both. Like, it's, I don't like, I feel like Overwatch is still really young of an esport that I find it a little bit early that some people are giving up. I definitely like, you know, Contenders hasn't been around that super long. Neither has Owl. And there's definitely going to be growing pains with both systems that I think once there's a sweet spot of how much they're spending and how much they're making, we'll kind of find a happy even. And I think everyone will be happy once that structure is found. But I like from being with Call of Duty every year for so many years, it took a long time for them to even figure it out. So for Overwatch to not be that old, obviously that's not going to be figured out yet. So, and I like the game enough that, and I also, the difference also between Overwatch and Call of Duty for me too is believing in the developers is something new to me, because Call of Duty at the time had a lot of bugs and not a lot of maybe interaction from the developers with the community. And obviously I could say this because I don't care about the game anymore, but it really just wasn't a happy environment. Didn't feel like the game cared about its community and vice versa. Whereas I feel like Overwatch has really, I know people might haha this, but you know, they fixed, you know, 6-man res, they fixed Brigida, they fixed like all these things that were things the community brought up. And although it might take so much time to fix it, it still got fixed. And it felt like the developers are always putting out things that the community wants. The 222 lock, the 222 roll queue. Like, I actually believe in the developers of Overwatch. So I know that some things look malicious. Like maybe you're like, oh, this isn't as great as this, or this isn't looking too good right now. But I know this is all like a journey and a process. And as long as I believe in the devs and the community is pretty cool, I don't know, I'll be here for quite a while until the devs maybe do something wrong, really, 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 really wrong. Then maybe I'll go the other way. But it'll take me a lot.
So, I mean, there's a new Call of Duty franchise league starting, so I mean, you got that. One of the things you do is you kind of go out there and, like, especially with like contenders, you do these little videos that we've kind of talked a little bit on Twitter where you kind of get people like more known. And that's kind of something that a lot of people have like complained about, is it feels like there's not enough attention on contenders overall. And you're doing something to actually combat that, which I commend you wholeheartedly for that. What do you think can kind of go out there to help improve the contender scene? Do you think it's getting like more viewership or more eyes on contenders, or how do you think you could, like, what are some ways that we should go about looking to improve the contender scene?
Well, I've definitely started kind of doing my own thing. I've already approached kind of the group, or I won't say Blizzard, but you know, some of the contenders people, and just be like, these are the things I'd like to help with, and not maybe not. How do I say this? Kind of like if someone won't do it, then you'll do it yourself. You know, like I want to do things myself if it's not going to get done. So Contenders Europe had like post-match interviews. I really like that. I think that brought a whole face to the player, you know, to kind of get to know them. What are they like outside of the game? So that was cool. But then Contenders NA didn't have that. So that's why I started posting my interviews, because a brand behind the player also brings a lot more fans. Because a big reason maybe Call of Duty has a lot of fans is because they have a lot of personalities that are really out there in your face. Like Clayster has a lot of fans because he's very outspoken. He's yelling all the time. I think he streams maybe. But people will watch the games more when they know who's playing, if that makes sense. And I think there could be so much more done around that. Like kind of, you know, how like Riot does their own content for League, have these like documentaries. A lot of Owl teams had documentaries going on, and I don't know if people still do that. But I think a big investment in content would be huge just to get people attached to the players. But it also should be up to the players to maybe have more streams to kind of help themselves too, right? And have streams, have their own content. That would help. And then the marketing of Contenders has gotten better, so that's not as much of an issue. And what else? There's even promotion of Contenders on the BattleNet, so that's helping. Overall, it's just you can't just have gameplay and expect people to watch. Like, there has to be incentive.
Yeah.
Whether it's the story behind it, the personalities, like your favorite players. Like, a lot of people watch Dallas Fuel not because they're good, sorry, Jane, but because the players, people love the players. Like, there was Siegel at the time, there's Taimu, there's Mickey. Like, these are all branded personalities, and there's a reason they have a huge fan base. Now, if we could take that personality marketing thing and apply it to each contenders team, like, I think Triumph actually are doing a great job in marketing their team despite not being assigned academy team. So I think it's just about adding a face to the gameplay, and people want something else to watch other than Overwatch. Get some content out there. So, but then people also have to watch the content. So having people support contenders.
Big feels on
drop that view. Drop that view. Watch these ads.
Big feels. So. Yeah, I think content creation in Overwatch is like something that you're very, I would say, proficient with. What do you think about content in Overwatch? Because it feels like there's a constant complaint. Like, people are like, oh, there's not enough content, but then like no one watches content really. Like, it feels like a very small population for like content creators in the scene. Do you think that that's true, or do you think people are bad at making content?
I think there's a lot of opportunity for just media empires to happen. Like, you think of Optic, like I think like, I wouldn't say 90% of viewership, but back in Call of Duty, like, you would have viewership just double when Optic would be playing. And I think like, if orgs really spent the investment or the time to build that empire around their team and to just make that content, like, then not only would viewership for the events come, but the money would come too. I've definitely liked some of the documentaries that some of the OWL teams have put out. I've watched the Florida one. I've watched the, I want to say Fuel had one, but there's like a few OWL teams that have it going on. But I don't think I've ever heard of it, like, maybe tweeted out as much. I don't know. I kind of accidentally found it on YouTube. So again, the marketing, I'm not some content like expert who's going to tell these OWL orgs to how it's going to be doing it. But
what about independent content creators? Do you feel like there's a lot of independent content creators out there? Because that's another, like, I've obviously had like, you do content. I've had Dividing by Zero on here. Yiska on here who does content. But it feels like just like looking out there in my little scope on like Overwatch, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of independent content creators out there either.
Yeah, it's hard because Overwatch, there's a lot more players that watch Overwatch League.
Yeah.
But don't play it. Then there's a lot more people. There's obviously a way larger fan base that is plat and below than there is of masters and grandmasters and even diamond. So a lot of people may try to tend their content to the hardcore audience, but not as much towards the casual audience. So that's where you have people like Jane and maybe Dividing by Zero and CarQ that tailor their videos to the casual audience, and they do very well. But then that educational market's maybe a little bit saturated at this point, or at least like maybe doesn't tailor to the casual audience as well. You also have to have like some credibility. There's a lot of random people that are trying to do educational content, but they don't have any sort of rank or anything behind them. And then there's obviously a lot of views behind just drama stuff, like everyone drama or clicks or just news. I'll call it news channels.
No. We're gonna call it drama channels. I cannot do that. I'm sorry.
Okay, but there's like a difference between Stylosa, who's more news-ish,
and
then someone like Michael that is like clicky drama. So I just want to make sure I'm not calling Stylosa a drama one, because he's definitely more news and patch no guy. And Michael was like your clickbaity one.
He was like your lovely Cosmo that you'd go and pick up from the store.
Yeah, totally. And I don't know. I've definitely done content, and there's maybe not that many viewers or people that like Overwatch content. Like, they watch OWL, and that's kind of their take of OWL, or that's their taste of OWL or Overwatch. So that's why I kind of started bringing my content more to Twitter, because I also think YouTube may be less accessible to some people. or at least my audience is all on Twitter. So I've made it more accessible to them to just go there. But kind of weird that I'd have to see like the watch minutes of Overwatch content because it doesn't seem like it's as successful as other esports.
That's kind of the same thing that I've noticed is like, I know that League of Legends content is pretty big and was like pretty big, and I should have kept doing League of Legends content when I did it way back in college. That would have been smart, but I'm not smart, so unlucky. But like, you notice that with like other things too, that they seem to be like fairly good, and Overwatch just, it doesn't seem to be there. So I was just curious if you had any insights on that. So.
No, I mean, I'm working, like Jane and the whole crew, we're still trying to figure out like what content works and like doesn't work. And it's really hard to figure out sometimes. Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of the reason why Jane doesn't want me doing contenders content on Elo Hell, because like contenders content just doesn't get views. It just doesn't make money. So we've just given up on that. But I don't give up because I'm a stubborn cow. So I will keep doing that. You
are stubborn. I don't think you're a cow. At least I don't think I failed biology. Like I didn't fail biology, so I'm pretty sure I'm good.
I'm pretty sure you're not a cow.
No, pretty sure. So believe it or not, like that has been like all the. I have one question for you left. Okay, like one left. Okay. I know one left. And it's the same one I actually ask every single guest. So you should. It's either going to be the hardest question or easiest question. So. My last question for you is, having had the experience been on the show, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here because I've had a lot of fun. I don't know if you have, but I have.
Me too.
So having had the experience being on the show, if you could see any one person, and the only criteria is that they have to be involved in esports in some aspect, any one person to be on this show. Oh, they have to speak English too because I don't speak other languages. So any one person you could see being on this show, who would you want to see?
Oh, God. Oh God, I don't know. I want to see Hirix on the show because he's a mysterious, keeps to himself boy that has a funny sense of humor, and I don't think gets to let out his personality as much as he'd want. So I'd be interested in knowing the deeper dive into my co-caster Hirix. So the challenge is set. Maybe he's as boring as he seems to be, so I don't know, but now he has to go and do this too.
Okay, you could like be like, hey, listen, I called you out on this. You got to do it now. I'm just letting you know. Blake's gonna come to you sometime, and you have to do it. So
challenge baton being thrown.
I'll make sure. Gotta make sure to give it to him.
Okay.
So I just want to thank you so much for being on the show. It's been wonderful having you on. It's a lot of fun. This is your moment. If you want any shout outs, you're more than welcome to have them. I don't normally do them, but if you want them, you can have them. Like most people don't watch towards the end of the show anyway. So like,
all right. Well, I'm LemonKiwi. I know I have an underscore in all of my socials, or the LemonKiwi on YouTube. Make sure you catch NA Contenders playoffs on the 12th, 13th, and 14th. Support Tier 2. And China quarterfinals, I'm casting on the 10th. And KR semifinals, I'm casting on the 14th. Which maybe this episode is gonna air after the fact. But hey, support Tier 2 and support your community, and love you all.
Thank you so much. For everyone out there, this has been Deep Dives in the Minds of Esports. My name is Blake Panashevitz, and until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Okay, we are.